and gentle, and he has a big price. Dark brown skin, piercing blue eyes, long locked hair, you gotta be nice. He loves the ladies, and the ladies love him. Why is that like this? Because Cipher, he's the gym. The hip-hop CI freelancer.
Title: The Shadow Lyricist. Written by Nathan Holden. Created for BuzzBooks and beyond. Narrated by InVideo. The bass line thumped low and steady, vibrating through the underground club like a heartbeat. Bodies swayed to the rhythm, lost in the music, unaware that among them moved the most dangerous man in the country. He was neither a ghost nor a shadow, but a song, impossible to forget yet untouchable by those who sought him. His name was Cipher. Cipher wasn't just another spook. He didn't blend into the faceless crowd of the CIA's best-kept secrets. He stood out, long, thick locks framed his deep brown skin, and his piercing blue eyes cut through anyone who dared hold his gaze. A walking paradox, a man born between two worlds, neither of which truly claimed him. His mother, a white woman who never wanted him, and his father, a black man who never knew he existed. The agency never knew what to do with him. He was too bold, too loud, too public. He moved through the streets like a king, but operated in the back alleys like a ghost. His music, a mix of hip-hop and encoded intelligence drops, made him a cult figure in underground circles. To the world, he was an enigma, a celebrity who seemed to belong to no nation, no agency, no man. But behind the beats and rhymes, Cipher was America's deadliest CIA freelancer, also known as the IC. Tonight, the mission was personal. The whispers spoke of a rogue faction, a collective of power-hungry extremists from all walks of life, black, white, rich, poor, who believed they could decide the future of the country. They sat in pews on Sundays, plotted in boardrooms on Mondays, and whispered in halls of power by night. Their goal? Reclaim control by any means necessary. Cipher had no master, but he had a code. He operated in the gray, but even the gray had its limits. He'd seen the underbelly of the system, and he knew the danger of letting puppeteers play unchecked. As he made his way toward the VIP section, his eyes locked on the target, a senator's son, drunk off power and arrogance. The man thought he was untouchable, thought his father's connections could shield him. Tonight, Cipher would remind him that even shadows had weight. A bartender slipped him a note with his drink, a single word, "Run!" Cipher smirked. Too late. The lights cut out. The music died. A moment of silence before chaos erupted. Gunshots split the air, and the crowd screamed. Cipher moved before the first body hit the floor, his mind 2 steps ahead of the ambush. He grabbed the senator's son by the collar, yanking him into the darkness.
You thought you could play with fire. Now you burn.
The senator's son whimpered, but Cipher had no sympathy. He dragged the man through the chaos, slipping through the shadows like a ghost. By the time the authorities arrived, Cipher was gone. The only trace of his presence, a verse whispered over the club's speakers.
A king moves in silence, a ghost in the fray. You never saw me, but you'll feel me today.
By the morning, the senator's son would confess everything. And Cipher? He would disappear again, somewhere between the law and the lawless, a legend written in beats and blood, and this was only the beginning. Cipher walked the dimly lit alley, the scent of burnt rubber and spilled liquor thick in the air. His burner phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, checked the encrypted message. 3 words. Abort. New target. His jaw clenched. No name, no details. Typical. The agency never asked for permission, only obedience. But Cipher was no government lapdog. He turned a corner, blending into the midnight crowd, his mind already working ahead. If they wanted him to switch targets, that meant someone bigger had taken notice. Someone dangerous. And that someone had just put Cipher in their crosshairs. He needed intel. Fast. Cipher pulled up his hoodie and ducked into a graffiti-tagged doorway. The building reeked of sweat and ambition, the underworld's true currency. Inside, a small recording studio buzzed with activity. Producers, rappers, and hustlers alike, all chasing a dream or running from a nightmare. In the back corner, a woman sat behind a mixing board, oversized headphones hanging loosely around her neck. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, met his as he approached.
Cipher thought you were laying low.
I was.
He dropped the burner phone on the table.
Then this happened.
They're cutting your leash.
They're trying.
Cipher leaned in, voice low.
I need to know who they're protecting.
Then, reaching into her pocket, she slid a USB across the table. She tapped her fingers against the desk, thinking.
But there's a name that keeps popping up. This is all I got: names, locations, encrypted chatter. Nash Carter.
Cipher's pulse quickened. The name wasn't new. Nash Carter wasn't just any name, he was the kingmaker, the man in the shadows pulling the strings of politicians, CEOs, and intelligence agencies alike. If Nash Carter was involved, then Cipher had just stepped into a war he wasn't supposed to survive.
Appreciate you, Mina.
You owe me. Stay alive long enough to pay up.
Cipher turned and slipped back into the night, the city swallowing him whole. Nash Carter. If the CIA wanted Cipher off his trail, that meant one thing: Nash Carter was afraid. Cipher didn't go home. He didn't have one. Instead, he moved like liquid, slipping between the cracks of the city, blending with its heartbeat. He stopped at a rundown internet cafe, paying cash to use an untraceable machine. Plugging in the USB, he watched lines of encrypted code spill across the screen. There, buried in the data, were coordinates. The location, an abandoned airstrip outside of DC, the timestamp 24 hours from now. The players, high-profile, untouchable men. And in the center of it all, Nash Carter. Cipher leaned back, a slow grin forming.
Time to crash the party.
Cipher moved through the shadows like a melody only a few could hear. The weight of the USB in his pocket was nothing compared to the weight of the name it carried: Nash Carter. The airstrip meeting was less than a day away, and he needed leverage before he walked into the lion's den. He needed to find someone who could decode the deeper layers of the encrypted files. He had only one option: Monk. Monk was a digital ghost, a hacker whose hands had rewritten history without ever leaving his apartment. His fortress was hidden behind layers of false identities, firewalls, and paranoia. Finding him was easy. Getting inside was another story.
Nash Carter. You brought me a puzzle? Cipher stood outside the steel-plated door of an old warehouse, knocking in a rhythm only Monk would recognize. A camera above the door whirred, then the lock clicked open. Inside, Monk sat behind a wall of monitors, screens filled with endless lines of code and flashing security feeds.
Monk's fingers froze over his keyboard. His usual cocky smirk faltered.
You serious?
Cipher's piercing blue eyes locked onto him.
Dead serious.
Monk grabbed the USB and inserted it. As he worked, Cipher leaned against the wall, scanning the room's scattered tech. The tension thickened as Monk's fingers danced over the keyboard. A moment later, his eyes widened.
Cipher, this isn't just a meeting. Nash Carter is planning something big. This airstrip meeting? It's not a sit-down. It's a handoff. Files, people, talk.
Who's receiving?
That's the part that's locked down tighter than the Pentagon.
Cipher exhaled. He didn't like unknowns. He lived in gray areas, but this was too dark, even for him. Monk's hands flew across the keyboard.
Wait, I got something. A name. Project Revenant.
People who asked too many questions about Revenant didn't get answers. They got erased. Cipher's stomach knotted. He'd heard whispers of it, a covert initiative buried so deep even the agency avoided its name.
I'm going to that airstrip.
Then I'd say you've got about 24 hours to rewrite your will.
I don't plan on dying.
He turned to leave, but Monk called after him.
One more thing, this file, there's another person attached to it. Selene Vega.
And the last time he saw her, she left him for dead. Chapter 3. Cipher stood in the neon-lit alley, Monk's words still echoing in his head. Selene Vega. The last time he saw her, he had been bleeding out in a warehouse in Caracas, a knife in his side and a smirk on her lips. She wasn't just an old ally. She was the one who turned him into the agency the first time, a trained killer, a master manipulator, and the only woman who had ever truly known him. If she was involved in Project Revenant, then this mission had just become personal. Cipher inhaled deeply, shoving down the memories. He didn't have time for ghosts. He had a meeting to crash. In an abandoned airstrip outside of DC, Cipher moved through the shadows, his long locks tied back, a black tactical jacket hugging his frame. The airstrip stretched ahead, lit by only a few dim floodlights. A private jet sat idle, engines running. Men in dark suits flanked the tarmac, weapons barely concealed beneath their coats. Monk had been right. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a handoff. "Talk to me," Cipher said to Monk, who was connected to his earpiece. "Thermal scan shows 12 bodies, 8 guards, 1 pilot, 1 unknown entering the plane, and 2 VIPs about to shake hands," Monk replied. Cipher peered through his scope. One of the VIPs was Nash Carter, the kingmaker himself. A man who didn't leave digital footprints, a man the CIA barely whispered about. The second VIP? Cipher's pulse ticked up. Selene Vega. She was dressed in black, sleek and dangerous, walking alongside Nash as if she belonged there. He should have known, Selene didn't just betray people. She played the long game. She always lands on her feet. "She's trouble, Cipher, and not the fun kind," Monk whispered in his earpiece. "Depends on your definition of fun." He had 3 choices. 1. Take out Nash Carter now, eliminate the puppet master and throw everything into chaos. 2. Extract Selene, force the truth out of her and discover what she was doing with Carter. Or 3. Let them go, gather intel and wait for a bigger play. Cipher sighed. He always did like the hard way. He took aim, not at Carter, at Selene. A shot rang out. The bullet didn't hit her, but it was enough. The guards snapped into action, confusion rippling through their ranks. Nash spun, barking orders. Selene didn't flinch. She knew exactly who fired that shot. Cipher moved, fast and fluid. The moment of distraction was all he needed. He dropped from his vantage point, slipping into the chaos. He was a ghost, a whisper, a lyric in the wind. As Selene turned, their eyes locked. Blue met dark brown, a pass neither of them could escape.
Hello, Cipher.
Chapter 4. Cipher's grip tightened around his pistol. Selene didn't move or flinch, just stood there in the chaos like she had all the time in the world. Behind her, Nash Carter was already escaping toward the plane while his guards scrambled to form a perimeter. He wasn't panicked, he was prepared. Typical. Cipher didn't have time to hesitate. He sprinted forward, weaving between crates and fuel tanks, closing the distance between him and Selene. She watched him come, her expression unreadable, her body relaxed but coiled like a snake waiting to strike.
I was wondering when we'd meet again.
Step aside, Selene.
You sure that's what you want?
Before he could answer, a blur of motion flashed in his periphery. One of Nash's guards, swinging a rifle butt at his head. Cipher ducked, driving an elbow into the man's ribs and twisting the weapon free in one fluid motion. Without hesitation, he spun, firing twice. One shot to the knee, the other to the shoulder. The guard crumpled, screaming.
You're still fast, I almost forgot.
Damn it. He lunged for Selene, but she was faster. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist and twisted, forcing him to pivot. He countered, shifting his weight, but she had already anticipated it, dropping low and sweeping his legs out from under him. He hit the tarmac hard, but he rolled, recovering in seconds. By the time he was back on his feet, Selene had her gun trained on him.
I'd rather not kill you, but you know how this goes.
Do I? Without warning, he threw a smoke pellet to the ground. The world exploded in thick white fog. He moved fast, slipping through the haze, disarming Selene in one swift motion. His arm wrapped around her waist, pinning her back against him. Still quick! I almost forgot.
You always were dramatic.
What the hell are you doing with Nash Carter?
You don't understand, Cipher. This is bigger than you think.
A distant explosion rumbled across the tarmac. The plane was in the air now, Nash escaping into the night. Cipher clenched his jaw. He had lost this round, but Selene was still here, and she was his next move. Start talking.
You're not gonna like it.
Try me.
Nash Carter isn't the one pulling the strings. Project Revenant, it's not what you think.
Then let's find out. Thanks for listening. To find out about Project Revenant, a classified government secret, and learn the fate of Cipher and Selene, subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when a new episode is released.
Y'all already know, Cipher is here, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. I guess you got that. He's handsome and nice, he's good to advise, he's smart and gentle, and he has a big price. Dark brown skin, piercing blue eyes, long locked hair, you gotta be nice. He loves the ladies, and the ladies love him. Why is that like this? Because Cipher is the gym, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's here, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's clear, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. You know the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's Cipher, let's go. Y'all already know, Cipher is here, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. I guess you got that. He's handsome and nice, he's good to advise, he's smart and gentle, and he has a big price. Dark brown skin, piercing blue eyes, long locked hair, you gotta be nice. He loves the ladies, and the ladies love him. Why is that like this? Because Cipher is the gym, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's here, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's clear, the hip-hop CIA freelancer. You know the hip-hop CIA freelancer. It's Cipher, let's go.